All right. The title of the session is Why Here? Why Now? Why Me? And to answer that, we're going to talk a little bit about technology, and we're going to talk about what happens when technology explodes kind of into the world. And I'm warning you in advance, there's going to be a death. And I'm at least partially responsible for it. My name's Chuck Perret, and I'm the founder of CENTERLINE. We're a platform that helps the people who design buildings communicate with the teams of people who build them. So we're going to talk about building, and we probably should also talk about blueprints. Blueprints are, or were, the way that architects used to share their designs with builders. From the pyramids right up to the present day, there's a simple formula at work here. An architect makes one design, and then that design gets shared over and over again with the people who are going to build it. Just remember, architect draws, then some other people make a bunch of copies of that and share it. More on that in a minute. For now, I'm going to zoom in on 3 moments to share with you. The first moment, if you can bear with it, we're going to go back to 1985, when I was 15. I was a nerd in high school, working in my family's blueprint shop. And I was fascinated with the Tandy TRS-80 computer that had just shown up in the computer science lab at my high school. And I was super stoked when I learned that a lot of our architect clients were buying computers and starting to use them to draw. So we eventually went down to Radio Shack, and bought one of those TRS-80s. Look, this is not a young man's game here. I'm just letting you know. I bought one of those TRS-80s to hook up this new plotter that we had just got, and in the process started the first commercial CAD plotting service in the state of Louisiana. Pretty good for a 15-year-old. Shout out to CalComp. Sorry. Shout out to MS-DOS. Where my DOS people at? This is a tech conference. There we go. I didn't realize it then, but this was the first nail in the coffin. And that TRS-80 was the hammer. Because for thousands of years before this, the origin of every architectural drawing was a piece of paper. And from that point on, the origin of those drawings was wrapped up in ones and zeros. Pretty soon, we were driving all over town, picking up discs loaded with files to stick into our disk drives, to plot and copy. And we were so excited about all this fancy new stuff, we barely noticed that people slowly stopped buying all the drafting instruments, pens, and papers that were lining the shelves from floor to ceiling of our blueprint shop. Next stop. Fast forward 20 years later, August 29th, 2005. Levees break, the city floods. I'm back on the floor of my high school bedroom on air mattresses with my wife and my 2 young daughters. And we're wondering if New Orleans would ever recover. Like a lot of people, we were kind of paralyzed for a while. And I remember saying that if we ever had another big disruption in our lives, we would do more and act instead of react as a result of it. Anyway, if you remember those days, you'll also remember that it took a long time for any real progress started to happen in our recovery. And then 3 very important things happened in relatively short order. November 2006, the city of New Orleans completed its redevelopment plan, which your friendly neighborhood blueprint shop helped compile and copy and distribute to everybody that was interested in seeing it. This thing was really important because it was the key that helped unlock the flow of federal recovery money to the city of New Orleans. 2 months later, on January 9th, 2007, Steve Jobs gets on a stage in California and introduces this device to the world. And then in September of the following year, the global financial crisis breaks. Now, what do all these things have in common? The result is that all over the world, when the financial crisis breaks, all over the world, corporate budgets get slashed. And overnight, construction virtually stops everywhere in the United States, except in one key location, right here, South Louisiana. And New Orleans became the epicenter of architecture in the United States, because it was flush with billions and billions of long overdue reconstruction money. So for a while, it was a real boom time if you were going to be making blueprints for a living. But as the reconstruction continued and projects kept getting bigger and bigger, and we started noticing that they were slowly printing fewer and fewer blueprints. Something was happening. For a lot of blueprinters, they sum up their job as making copies. Remember, I told you we were going to come back to this. So you give me one, I make you 10. Well, that business started drying up as our customers found that they could send files by email and avoid the blueprint shop altogether. Just like they stopped buying pens and paper from us two decades earlier. Between 2010 and 2020, half of all the independently owned blueprint companies in the United States of America closed. To offset those losses, many businesses, my business partners included, followed the lead of some blueprint shops and started printing things other than blueprints. Signs, banners, wall graphics, all kinds of stuff. Today, all those shops, former blueprint companies, are now all rebranded as signs and graphics companies. But in the midst of all this, I saw things differently. For one, I never saw our business as merely making copies. I saw our business as an information hub. Architects gave us project information and relied on us to share it with everyone who needed to see it. I talked to our customers, and I learned what was the purpose of each and every one of those documents, and who needed to see them, and why. And then I also realized that the new solution of emailing documents around had some very serious shortcomings, like, did you get it? The file got corrupted, or I can't open it. So I started hacking together small existing applications to help people share information better and more reliably, all just using the internet. Instead of fighting the death of blueprints, once again, I was helping put nails in its coffin. Last story, is from 2020. I was repeatedly losing the argument, and there were definitely a lot of arguments, that our future was not in the you give me one, I make you 10, but rather in information management. I made and installed so many signs and banners, and each one felt like a tiny betrayal. I was nearing the end of my rope. Friday, March 13th, 2020, the world starts to shut down, and then, and I'm feeling it right now just telling this to you, the hair on my neck stands up, and I get this tingling feeling that reminds me of this promise that I made to myself back in 2005 on the air mattress during Katrina. It's time. Be intentional. Act. So when the world went into lockdown, I started building what would become CENTERLINE, an information hub for design and construction professionals. And the response has been fantastic. We launched our MVP in 2021 and started taking on customers in 2022. 2023, we grew 350% year over year, and 2024 is looking great. Leading a startup has been terrifying, but it's also exhilarating. And for every setback and roadblock that I've encountered, one thought keeps me pushing through. This business, right here, right now, is exactly what I'm meant to do. And now you know why. Thank you.